From Washington, the Mclaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
If. For such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe if should never hold you back. If should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.
Investing takes perspective. It comes from navigating up and down markets for 60 years, spotting opportunities at home and abroad. Global investing from Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
Issue 1, Speaker in Waiting.
I'm here to tell you tonight that our new majority will be prepared to do things differently. It starts with cutting spending instead of increasing it. Reducing the size of government instead of increasing it. And reforming the way Congress works and giving the government back to the American people. And for all those families who were asking, where are the jobs? It means ending the uncertainty in our economy and helping small businesses get back to work.
Thanks to Tuesday's Republican sweep, John Boehner is the soon-to-be Republican Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, succeeding Democrat Nancy Pelosi. In January, 2 months from now, Speaker Boehner starts his 21st year, serving Ohio's 8th District, including parts of Cincinnati and Dayton, in the U.S. House of Representatives. Speaker Boehner has been Republican House Minority Leader for 4 years, since 2007. This Tuesday, Congressman Boehner won re-election 66% to his opponent's 30%. The Speaker-to-be is 61 years old, was born in Ohio, second of 12 children. Congressman Boehner holds a business degree, is married with 2 daughters, and is Catholic. Speaker-to-be Boehner served in the Ohio House of Representatives for 6 years. He was 4 years president of a small packing firm. That made him a millionaire. His politics are conservative. On the premier conservative rating system, the ACU, American Conservative Union, out of a perfect 100 conservative rating, Boehner scores 92. On the premier liberal rating system, the ADA, Americans for Democratic Action, the Speaker-to-be gets a liberal 0.
Question, does Boehner have the right stuff to lead the GOP, Pat?
You saw that ADA rating. Of course he does, John. Look, John Boehner is a moderate conservative, but he's a conservative guy. He owes his speakership to the Tea Party folks. He basically agrees with them. His convictions are the same. His political interests dictate getting along with them, bringing them in and leading. Does he have the skills? I think so. He came through the Newt Gingrich purge, John. And so I think what you've got is he's got much more in common with the Tea Party conservatives and the conservatives in the House, far more than he does with Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi, who's going to be the leader on the other side. So I think we're headed for gridlock.
Barack Obama, when he was in the Senate, do you know what his ADA rating was?
He had the most liberal voting record.
100. What was it?
His 100.
100.
Right.
He was more liberal than Bernie Sanders, who is a socialist.
Hello, do you want to respond to the basic
Horror
question?
of horror. He's so liberal. Right.
100.
He did.
Kennedy, the same year, got an 86.
He did win an election with the largest majority that Democrats have seen in some time, and he's going to be your president, too, for the next 2 years. John Boehner is the perfect person to head that caucus in these times because he's basically old wine in a new tea kettle. He's not a strong ideologue. He's the anti-Gingrich, and he basically has the challenge of melding all these fiery new members with the corporatist members who were there. It's going to be a difficult task, and the pledge to repeal Obamacare, To me, I think that's as perilous as the impeachment effort of Clinton was when the Republicans were in charge the last time.
How do you think he'll get along with Obama?
I think they'll get along modestly fine. I don't see them having big...
One was 100 and the other was 0.
Let me answer the question.
The perfect conservative with the perfect liberal.
I don't see them having big, deep discussions about policy, but I think they know how to cut deals, and they'll operate a lot through surrogates on both sides.
Do you recall when Obama was hanging out the name of Boehner in on some of his appeals? And Boehner was unknown? About 2 months ago?
Well, look, he tried to demonize Boehner as his opponent, which was very foolish. Not 1 in 1,000 people in the country knew who Boehner was then.
Okay, Boehner's yin side. Yin as in yin and yang.
We can celebrate when we have a government that has earned the trust of the people that it serves. When we have a government that honors the Constitution and stands up for the values that have made America, America. Things like economic freedom, individual liberty, and personal responsibility. Listen, I hold these values dear because I've lived them. I've spent my whole life chasing the American dream.
Is Boehner's emotional extroversion helpful or hurtful?
I thought that was a very powerful moment by John Boehner. Remember during the primaries when Hillary Clinton choked up in New Hampshire? She was a hero for showing an emotional and human side. John Boehner has lived the American dream. He came from nothing. Midwest guy, 11 brothers and sisters, and he's rising to being third in line for the American presidency. That is quite a story. If that's his first impression to most of the American people, I think it was a very good one. Here is where his power lies. And this is why strategically for the Republicans to control the House and not the Senate is very important. Because the Republicans led by John Boehner, they're going to be the engine for real change coming up. All of these bills are going to be coming out of the House on Obamacare, on tax cuts, on cutting spending. They are going to be presented to the Senate. The Democrats in the Senate will either sit on it or try to kill it. If it makes it to the president's desk, if any of these bills make it to Obama's desk, he will kill it. What they will be able to do very effectively, John, is turn the tables on the Democrats and make them the party of no.
You wrote the book on this. The book was titled Trainwreck, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got it.
And we just saw the engineer of the trains that's going to wreck. Look, real...
You mean Boehner?
Boehner. Real speakers don't cry. Okay, I thought that was an embarrassing, shameful moment. What was he crying about? He worked in his father's tavern. I worked at my father's gas station. BFD.
Real men
I don't cry about it. You know
Real men cry.
But I want to come back
and
to
this was a very emotional moment for him.
This is another antidote to Obama's cool and somewhat indifferent demeanor.
Well, I don't want to see Obama cry either, but I want to come back to Monica's point about Boehner's going to discover the same thing that Nancy Pelosi did. Sure, they can get things done in the House, and they're going to be dead on arrival in the U.S. Senate.
And whose fault is that going to be?
2 years from now, the American people are going to hit the clicker and say, where are the jobs? Where's the progress on this? Where's the progress on that? You didn't get anything done. Zip, we'll go back to
John,
the
Bill's got a point.
He's already changed his language talking about cutting spending. I didn't hear anything about cutting the deficit. That's going to be a lot harder. He's going to adjust to reality because he's going to have a very hard time fulfilling the pledges.
John, Bill's got a
Cut
point.
taxes, he's going to have a bigger problem with the deficit.
Right. John, Bill's
the current accounts deficit and the public debt, which is now about $13 trillion.
Bill's got a good point. Bill's got a good point. The country, if they gave Obama a mandate, I'm not sure they did, in 2008, there's a new mandate that's been given. The country said, we don't want to go over here, we want to go over there. How do you compromise when one part of the country wants to go east and the other wants to go west?
Okay, let's get in.
Deadlock.
Let's get into that. Let's get into that. Tuesday's election.
Republicans gained 60-plus seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, the largest House victory in 62 years. Since 1948, Republicans now hold 239 seats, up from 178. Democrats won 186 seats, and ballots are still being counted in 10 more races that could flip to either party.
That's GOP lost in 68.
They lost in 48. They won a huge 80th Congress, Richard Nixon in it, Jack Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, 1946.
Okay. Let's correct that record. In the Senate, Republicans gained 5 seats. Democrats maintain their majority, but their seats have shrunk from 59 to 53. Republicans hold 46 seats. As we go to press, Alaska remains in play. Will probably go Republicans. Will be 47. Question: who were some of the big winners in this election cycle, Bill Press?
John Boehner, Harry Reid, and Jerry Brown.
What about the other race?
well, if you want some more, I mean, I can tell you, I think Barbara Boxer's a big winner. People had written her off. And, you know, you got to say that Marco Rubio in Florida was a big winner.
Do you think that Whitman did herself in California, rather it being a clear victory for Brown?
Well, no. Jerry Brown really showed he's a survivor. He's very smart. He's run the table now of elective offices. But he was helped by the fact that Meg Whitman spent so much money and was on television so long, every day, with such a heavy buy that people just got sick and tired of Meg Whitman.
Well, what about the story of the hiring of the immigrant?
That hurt her a lot.
I think that hurt her a lot.
Jerry Brown got 64% of the Latino vote. Harry Reid got 68% of the Latino vote.
That video of that maid that she hired.
I think the Republicans, in addition to picking up a lot of seats and sweeping state houses and all of that, they did finally usher in a new generation of leaders, and you do see some diversity there. 3 female governors, Cuban-American Marco Rubio. I think John Kasich is more old wine in a new tea kettle, governor of Ohio. And I think these are people who are going to shape the party for the
big
future.
winner was the Tea Party movement, which is now no longer a movement, but it's actually
mainstream America. You have the numbers
America.
of the ones she endorsed and the ones that made it?
Well, some Tea Party candidates did lose, but a good number of them did win. Pat Toomey, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, Marco Rubio in big Senate races. Some of them did lose, Sharon Langle. But remember that the Republican Party's comeback is due in large part to the Tea Party movement because they re-energized the conservative base. And I would also say this, that the Tea Party movement now is going to have a huge impact on the Republicans coming into the Congress. And what happened as a direct result of the Tea Party's strength was that the Republicans were able to reverse the map of 2006 and 2008, reverse all of the Democratic gains in the South, the Midwest, and the Mountain West, which is going to make 2012 much more difficult.
You mean the Tea Party has to clear the appointees?
No, John, the Tea Party.
Or the winner, or the chairman?
That's not what I'm saying, but the Democrats thought that they had gained permanent footholds in these regions of the country.
John,
that is no longer true.
John, the Republican Party was moribund,
absolutely true,
dead, written off, no future as of 2008. It came surging back to a historic victory. And the Tea Party is the single greatest
And now the Tea Party is going to destroy the Republican Party and split it right down the middle, and it's going to be civil war, and it's going to be fun to watch.
The Tea Party actually
saved the Republican Party.
The Tea Party got elected on a whole bunch of promises and buzzwords, and translating that into reality, they're going to run into the same obstacles that President Obama did, trying to change the culture.
They're going to run into each other, and there's going to be deadlock. And the country will decide in 2012.
Did you want to make a point quickly?
My point to Bill's point is that the Tea Party actually saved the Republican Party, and they would not have had nearly these kinds of gains.
When you watch till John Boehner tries to compromise with Obama, and the Tea Parties go nuts, and Boehner will cave in.
The Tea Party is not a radical movement. We're talking about constitutionally limited government. That's hardly radical.
The Tea Party rule. Issue 2, the shellacking.
I'm not recommending for every future president that they take a shellacking like I did last night. You know, I'm sure there are easier ways to learn these lessons. The relationship that I've had with the American people is one that built slowly, peaked at this incredible high, and then during the course of the last 2 years it has gotten rockier and tougher. And, you know, it's going to, I'm sure, have some more ups and downs during the course of me being in this office.
Question: is President Obama contrite enough to compromise with the incoming Republican House majority? Eleanor.
He is going to look for common ground. I think that's in his DNA, but he also has to show fortitude in holding his ground, and I think a lot of people on his side feel that he didn't stand up to the Republicans, and now the Republicans are more visible, and if they say no to more infrastructure spending or a payroll tax holiday or whatever the White House comes up with to try to rejuvenate this economy, if they say no, the spotlight will be on him. So I think
John,
common ground is
that,
fine, but confrontation
hey, John,
is what we're going to see.
Let me agree with Eleanor. Let me agree with Eleanor.
You want to agree?
Yeah, what he should say is he should be willing to compromise, but he's going to say, we got principles, convictions, and beliefs that tend to disagree with yours. You got half the government, we got the other half. We're going to find common ground there, but we're going to have to fight on certain things.
Right.
If he doesn't say that, he's not a leader.
All right, as a guest, let me just say, my fear is, as a liberal, that he's too willing to compromise, and he's too eager to compromise. He wasted too much time talking to Republicans in the first 2 years, and he's just going to get stabbed in the back if he tries it again. I think he ought to forget them and just move on with his own agenda.
What about the jobs issue? How is he going to handle that?
Well, look, 151,000 jobs in April. Jobs are slowly coming back. I think he ought to push for a second stimulus bill.
He'll be killed in the House. Killed in the House, Bill.
What's that?
He'll be killed in the House.
Well, at least he pushes for it. Again, as Eleanor says, fight for what's right.
The question
Katie
this week.
Couric asked him, what's the story on jobs? And he says, he says, why aren't you concentrating on jobs rather than health care? And he said, no, he said, I did jobs last year. I'm going to do health care this year.
Well, look, and this gets to answering your question. The question this week was, did Obama get it? Did he get the message that the voters this week were trying to tell him? I think he gets it. I just think he rejects it. For one whole year, the American people were screaming for jobs and to improve the economy. He blew that whole first year on Obamacare, which was an entitlement that nobody wanted and that we cannot afford. There is nothing. John, let me just
let me ask you this. If there are 15 million people who are out of work, do they have the power, 15 million people, to radicalize the nation?
Well,
you understand me?
Look, you have a chronically high You have a very chronically high unemployment rate. You have a president who looked like right after the $1 trillion stimulus, he checked out on the jobs issue. When you talk about compromise, there is nothing in this man's character or political temperament to suggest
created by
moderation.
the stimulus. You can't ignore it. You may want to ignore it. He has created more jobs.
$1 trillion to no effect.
He's created more jobs in 20 months than George Bush did in 8 years.
No, that's not true.
Hey, Bill, and where are the jobs coming from? Healthcare is a growing industry, and so he has reformed that. And
unfortunately,
the truth is there are limited things a president can do.
The country decided on Tuesday they don't agree with you.
Right.
They don't agree with you.
A smaller electorate from an 08. That is a lot of older people. A lot of the younger people didn't show up. It'll be a different electorate in 08.
I know it will.
And
we still have to set it back.
Let's get
Exit question on a political comeback scale of 0 to 10. 0 meaning Jimmy Carter, no comeback, whatever. 10 meaning Bill Clinton, the comeback kid. Rate Obama's odds of pulling off a comeback by 2012 when he's up for a second term if he decides to run, Pat Buchanan.
I would bet I'd give him 6 out of 10 that he would win the presidential election in 2012.
Really?
Yeah,
why? Because I
look at the country, I look at the demography, I look at deep behind some of these polls, the young people,
you can't
Hispanics.
beat somebody with nobody. Who's out there?
That's right.
Who's out there?
There are plenty of Republican candidates.
What do you rate him at?
I give him 8+, and I'll also point out that Jimmy Carter had a good midterm election, so he didn't have a comeback. He was a long, slow slide.
I even give him a 10 because there's nobody out there who can beat him.
A 10?
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, let's. I don't think you want to put money on that. I give him a 3 out of 10 because there's nothing in this man's political temperament or character to suggest moderation. Even this weekend, he sat with 60 Minutes, and he still believes that he's got a communications problem, a salesmanship problem, and not a policy problem. This week was a thundering rebuke of his big government policy.
The answer is 5. Issue 3, governors rule.
Folks, we took a step forward tonight to putting Ohioans back to work. We took a step forward to shrinking government and making it work better.
Ohio Republican governor-elect is John Kasich. Repeat, a Republican. And this week he unseated the Democratic incumbent, Ted Strickland, the 4-year Ohio governor and 20-year congressman. This is one of 11 governorships that the Republicans picked up from Democrats, bringing the tally to 29 governorships for the Republicans. Governors are powerful. They are powerful because state legislatures are granted the power by the U.S. Constitution to carve state districts, and this is known as redistricting.
What's the connection between redistricting and governors?
It's quite powerful, John. In most states, not California anymore, where they've taken it away from the legislature, if you get both houses of the legislature and the governorship, you can draw all the districts up where you take, for example, and take all the Democrats, put about 90% Democrats in this district, 90% in that, and you get all the other districts with yourself at 60%. That's the way Tom DeLay turned Texas around, and they're going to turn Texas around again.
The Constitution says the population of the congressional district is based upon the decennial census, correct?
Right.
So it's a population component that determines the district.
That's going to give.
Now, where do you get into drawing lines from that?
Well, no, you get 4 new districts are going into Texas, for example.
But they have to follow the population, do they not?
John, you're confusing two things. Number one, the number of people in the district is determined by the population. Right. The shape of the district is determined by the politicians who drew the line. I have to tell you a quick story. I was in a redistricting thing in California when I was working in the legislature. The chair of the committee came in, asked my senator, do you like this? He said, I don't like that little area. Took a pencil out, erased the line, and redrew the line.
But are they still governed by the total population?
Well, that just tells you.
But they can just design
how many
population that they want.
Can
they also put it next to, say, a city like Cincinnati? Include that? Can they move it into that?
They can do anything they want. That's the evil of it and the power of it. And by the way, the Republicans, Pat is right. After these elections, they elected 680 Republican state legislators around the country.
What's the veto power of the governor?
In terms of what? Redistricting, reapportionment? Well, the governors have tremendous influence in how these districts are being drawn. That's why when the GOP scored governorships in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Florida, this is major, not to mention South Carolina, which is also going to be gaining a seat. So this is a tremendous impact going into 2012 and actually beyond. And Bill is absolutely right. 680 legislative seats went to Republicans this year. That is historic. We have never seen that kind of a shift.
Right. If you're going to lose big, this was the year not to do it, because the Democrats have now enshrined the Republican gains for the next decade.
But you know what?
Did you hear what she said?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
John, red states picked up 7 congressmen and blue states lost 7.
The longest lasting impact of this election are going to be in the redistricting in the state legislature.
And the biggest problem...
I understand that, but the governors also have power with their respective party chairmen within their states. And they can express which candidate is more agreeable to them.
Well, they can endorse, but they can't change the
they
district
can endorse privately, pick up the phone. Hey, Harry, I understand. You want to take a so-and-so. That's a friend of mine.
The problem
I know that means a lot to you, Harry.
The problem that progressives have is that they congregate on the 2 coasts and in the various big cities, and all of the other rest of the country gets represented by the Republicans, and there are many more districts that are now Republican.
But John, let me give you an example.
That are Republican.
Republicans will take
progressives. We have to disperse.
Republicans, for example, let's take an African American community. They will put the whole community into one district, and the two or three districts around it will have no African Americans, and Republicans will take those, and the Democrats will take those.
Predictions, Pat.
Barack Obama will be challenged in the presidential primaries of 2012 by an anti-war candidate by the name of Russ Feingold.
Russ Feingold has said repeatedly that he's not going to do that, Pat. I hate to disillusion you.
No, Howard Dean said he's not going to do it.
Well, I think
not what I hear.
Well, okay. Well, I'm sure he's confiding to people on the right, because it would be a gift, definitely, to Republicans. I do think that the new Congress, the new Republically empowered Congress, will consider infrastructure spending and aid to the states, because they now control a lot of the governorships, and you have the whole Midwest is decimated by job loss, and Democrats have a vested interest, clearly, because 5 Democratic senators, all representing Midwest states, are up in 2012. The country needs it. Both political parties need it.
Why did Feingold lose?
Feingold was overtaken by a Republican who'd never run for office before, who had a wonderful white chalkboard, and on it he wrote the number of lawyers in the Congress, in the Senate, 57, and the number of businessmen was 0. He said they need a businessman, and that resounded.
Can I offer something here too? I think Feingold lost because he wouldn't take PAC money. You can't be too pure in this business.
That's a good point.
And
money. He needed more money.
He needed more money, refused to take PAC money or corporate money, and there he is.
Well, you notice that Feingold was also out of town on one of President Obama's visits. Sure. You remember that?
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
Right,
the
because he-
president was not popular
Obama did
in the
win.
votes he needed to win.
But then he showed up at the University of Wisconsin with Obama, too, so he wasn't running away from him. But, I mean, I just think he was almost too pure for his own good.
Do you
I
think
love
that-
him. I love him.
You think that in many races, the Democrats were not comfortable with President Obama being in their district?
No,
Yes.
he did not go where he wasn't wanted. They were very careful
I know
about
that. I know that.
So
was
some-
he a liability to candidates for the
because
Democratic Congress?
he didn't go. That's my point. He didn't become a liability. He didn't allow himself to become a liability. So, shall I give my prediction?
Yeah.
Another winner I forgot to mention in this time, Christine O'Donnell. And I'll tell you why. Because by the end of the month, she's going to have a contract with Fox News.
Right.
That's my prediction.
There may be another angle to that.
I just want to pick up on Pat's point. I agree with him. I think Russ Feingold is going to launch a primary challenge to Barack Obama in 2012. At the very end of his concession speech on Tuesday, he said onward to 2012.
No.
I also think that opens up an opportunity for somebody else to challenge President Obama, namely Hillary Clinton. But my prediction is that Democrat Senator from Nebraska, Ben Nelson, is up for re-election in 2012. He will switch parties and become a Republican. Because if he doesn't, he's toast.
What's this about Hillary?
He's done.
Party switches don't do that.
Hillary Clinton will. Oh, I get two predictions.
Quickly.
Hillary Clinton, if somebody else enters the primary race against the sitting president, she will also enter.
Nope.
And she will defeat him.
No way.
I
can't improve on any of that, Lore. Bye-bye.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
There's a world of investment opportunities out there. Spotting them takes experts on the ground, assessing potential firsthand. Templeton, a pioneer in global investing for over 50 years. Gain from our perspective.
If, for such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe if should never hold you back. If should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.